Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Winging It F1 podcast. It's another two-person shift this week because Freddie is living his best life in Paris. He's put some pictures up and it looks like he's having a great time there. That means me and Nigel are here to do a qualifying review, which, if you're a long time listener to the podcast, you know it's not a regular thing, but these last two qualifyings have just been so news-laden that we had to do another one this week. So we are here. I am here myself, Adam Dickinson, with Nigel True. Nigel, how are you?
I'm very well, Adam. Yeah, good to have you back after a good... Oh, actually, to be fair, we did the quality one together last week as well, so never mind. I was going to say something else, but I've just remembered what I was going to say is wrong. I won't say that.
Okay, that's good. We are all about the facts in this business. I think we worked out it was the last time we did a two-person podcast with me and Nigel was Belgium preview last year. So it's been a while, but I'm looking forward to getting to an absolutely jam-packed weekend so far at Jeddah, and there's not even been the race yet. So today we had qualifying. Sergio Perez took pole. It's his first pole position in about 250 qualifying appearances. He beats Mark Webber's record for the most qualifying appearances before getting a pole position. That bumped Ferrari down, who looked like they might be getting a front row lockout, but they didn't. So Charles Leclerc second and Carlos Sainz third. Mercedes, especially Hamilton, had a nightmare. Hamilton out in Q1 for the first time since Brazil 2017. The first time in a long
That's
time.
Correct.
And it wasn't an error. It was just they weren't getting the car dialed in. They weren't able to do anything. And Hamilton slips out of the qualifying in the first session, which is just mind-blowing to think about. And there was Mick Schumacher, who had a huge, I think I heard the number being put at 70G impact when in Q2, which led to an hour's delay. And we hope he's all right. He's gone to hospital, but they assessed him at the track medical centre and said he was okay. So we're going to be getting into all of that. But first, there was news coming out on Friday night that there was an explosion at an oil facility 10 miles away from the circuit, and a group of Yemeni rebels have claimed that and claimed it as a missile strike. There's been a lot of driver discussion about whether they should be racing, and so far they are. So Nigel, starting there, what are your thoughts on everything that happened before we even got to qualifying?
That's a big question. I think from what I understand, it's quite clear some drivers, we don't know who, we don't know how many, some drivers didn't want to race. Now, all of the team bosses, Liberty Media, they wanted to race, but the drivers are ultimately the people who are the stars of F1. And without them, there's no race. So they've got the power, really. And you could argue that it shouldn't even be in their hands as to whether they race or not, but it's what it came down to. And for me, if there's at least a few drivers, no matter who they are, whether it's someone who's won a championship, someone who's new to the sport, if there's a few drivers who didn't want to race, I think the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix shouldn't have carried on. It has, as we know. But yeah, those are my general thoughts. I mean, we probably shouldn't even be racing in Saudi Arabia anyway because of all the human rights issues that are going on and all the conflict as well, which is why this attack has happened. And I think to anyone listening to this, what I would say is, do read up on the Yemen, Saudi Arabian conflict that is going on there, because I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding almost, and people don't know about it as much as compared to say Ukraine and Russia, which is a bigger thing in Europe. But it is a complex issue, and it's a real shame that F1 has got itself into this mess. But yeah, I think the race or the weekend should have been stopped. And for me, I just have to put my hand up to the drivers, for taking that stance and not just going along with what the team bosses said and stuff, because it takes a lot of bravery to stand up in front of the rest of the grid and say, I don't think it's right that we should race. So yeah, that was my thought.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think when F1 has put itself in this position because when you race in dodgy countries, you end up in dodgy situations, and this is where it is now. And yeah, I completely agree. I think if there are drivers who don't feel safe with racing, then they shouldn't be racing. It's really as simple as that to me. But F1's bigger than that. Ultimately, it's not. There are so many stakeholders and so many decision makers, and it did sound like the drivers had a long discussion. I think it was 4 hours into Saturday morning that they were talking. So yeah, it went on for a long time, and they've got to the decision to race for the moment. I wonder if there's certain provisions in that. So if there's any other activity like this, then that's it, and they'll draw the line under it and move on and not race here. So we don't know anything like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was some kind of provision put in there. But yeah, I echo your words in read up about the conflict, find out exactly what the background is to this, and then you'll be in a better position to make an informed decision and informed opinion.
I think, well, the argument, or one of the things that is said is the reason they are racing is because if they didn't want to race, it would be tricky to get everyone out there and for planes and all that. I'm just interested to hear what you would say to that, Adam, to people who think, oh well, if they can only get a plane on Monday or even tomorrow, Sunday, they might as well just race anyway because they're there.
I think there's a couple of things. I mean, firstly, it's not, having the Grand Prix there puts Saudi Arabia in the kind of global perspective and global vision. So if the race isn't there, then that automatically kind of takes that away, which presumably will kind of decrease the risk of something happening while it's on the global stage. So I think that's the first thing. And, these things can be solved. It's not, if F1 cares about getting the people out of the country that don't want to race there, then they can solve it. It's not, it's not an insurmountable thing. So, yes, it would be costly, but if, it's just a matter of priorities. If that's what the drivers want to do, then F1 should be doing the most they can to facilitate that. And, if they weren't, then that would raise serious questions, which, it's all conjecture kind of at this point, I believe. But yeah, I don't think there's really too much wisdom in that. Are you of a similar position?
I don't know. I mean, there are a few people who've left. Ralph Schumacher left on Saturday morning, and so did some of the other Sky Germany people. So there were planes. Whether there would have been enough, I don't know. It's just, if they did stop, if they didn't race, it would have made a big stance to say, this isn't right. We can't race here and stuff like that. But maybe there's an agreement that they'll race this weekend and then they won't race next year and in future years, perhaps. I'm just speculating here, but yeah, it's tricky. I mean, F1 shouldn't even be in this position, quite frankly, but it is. Money talks, as Hamilton said during the Australian Grand Prix before it was cancelled in 2020. F1 just found itself in a bit of a hole, I think.
Yeah, and it's not like racing is taking a stance against anything. I don't, say a few years ago when the Borussia Dortmund bus was attacked on when they were going to play Monaco and one of their players was injured or something like that, and it felt like really big thing to play the game and kind of get on with it, to kind of take the stance against the attack. But here it's not, it's not that same kind of morality to racing. It's it's a war and a conflict that has, above all else, affected so many civilians in Yemen. And there's been famine, there's been thousands or tens of thousands of civilians killed in the fighting, and it's not something to race for. I don't think there's kind of that element of wanting to take a stance for it. And if that's the case, Liberty have to fulfill their contracts, and there's a lot of money in it, like you say. But beyond that, I don't kind of it's just racing, and racing isn't worth the potential risk of what is being faced here. So yeah, I think that's all I had to say. But have you got anything else to add on?
I just also think like if an explosion that's 10 miles away isn't going to stop them from racing in Saudi, then what is? You know, like does it have to actually hit the track or something?
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if we're still racing next year, I think, as well. But I think even if there are no more incidents this weekend, and let's hope there aren't, F1 shouldn't, you know, forget what happened on Friday, because that 4-hour meeting shouldn't have had to have taken place. The drivers shouldn't have been in that position to feel like that they shouldn't race there as well. So, yeah, I think there's going to be a bit more coming from this. But yeah, let's hope, first of all, that everyone who is in Saudi, journalists, drivers, teams, every single team member, everyone there, let's hope that they're okay this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. I completely echo that. And it's, it's one to watch and just keep your fingers crossed for, I think. But moving on to actual qualifying, then, as we said at the top, it was day to remember for Sergio Perez, because he came across the line. I think he was the penultimate driver over the line, with Verstappen the last driver, and Verstappen could only manage fourth. So yeah, it was as soon as Checo came over, then you could just see how kind of bouncing he was with the lap. And he said afterwards, if he did 1,000 more laps, then he wouldn't have beaten that one. So yeah, it was a really, really special day for Perez. And where, you know, how do you kind of sum up this achievement? And, you know, the fact that he's beaten Verstappen, he's beaten both Ferraris, you know, just kind of, I guess, pay a bit of homage to that.
Yeah, it was just extraordinary, because I think very few people thought that Perez would get a pole in the F1, because it's never been his strength. He's never been a good qualifier. And then to deliver on this tricky track, which has caught people out, people have made mistakes as well. And even Red Bull, they weren't exactly dominant this weekend. In fact, if anything, Ferrari looked like they had the best car. So to pull it out of the bag, it's something you'd expect Verstappen to do, but instead, Perez has done it. So a fantastic effort, great lap. He really risked it as well, because the risk versus reward on this track is absolutely huge. But he went for it, and it just about paid off by, I think, 2/2500ths of a second and 25 thousandths of a second. So, yeah, brilliant effort. Probably the best lap of his career.
Yeah. No, it's got to be. It was absolutely fantastic. And I think the fact that he is starting and Verstappen's 2 cars behind will really help. You know, it gives him a genuine chance to win the race. Whereas if it was him first, Verstappen second, you'd expect that he'd have to see that at some point. So I think that's absolutely massive that, you know, he's the lead driver. He's going to be the one battling. You know, there's been so many times where Verstappen's been the one kind of taking the fight to the opposition, and he's, you know, Perez is just there as kind of, you know, a roadblock effectively to try and, you know, or like a tactical pawn to use. But the fact that it's kind of roles reversed and, you know, he has that opportunity, I think is really, really exciting for him. Do you think Red Bull are going to kind of give him is he still going to, do you think he'll be the number one driver for the race in terms of strategy?
I think if the Ferrari pair are still in between Verstappen and Perez, so if it stays as it is now, then yes, they have to, or they'll just get outfoxed by Ferrari. But I think what they can do is they can do something different with Verstappen, whether that's undercutting to try and trigger some pit stops or going long. I think they can do that. But yeah, I think they will prioritise Perez. So he's got a great chance to win.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, yeah, it's an extremely exciting moment for Perez, because, you know, he doesn't get chances to win that often, and we kind of saw that last season where, were it not for Verstappen's tyre blowout, then, you know, that would have been it for him. So yeah, it's really exciting for him. But as one driver goes up, another driver has to come down, and today that driver was Sir Lewis Hamilton, who didn't make it out of Q1. I didn't think I'd be saying that this season. If you you know, asked me that before the season started, I just would have thought it was insane. But yeah, he, not through an error, not through a kind of, you know, one big issue, or not through one big incident, he just didn't have the pace to beat Lance Stroll and get into Q2. Were you as shocked as I was?
Oh yeah, massively. I mean, it's the first time since 2009 on pure pace Hamilton has failed to get out of Q1, which says it already. 13 years, that is absolutely mad. And the big question is what went wrong? Because looking at the lap, there were no clear mistakes, and that is the annoying thing for him is that there weren't any mistakes. He thought it was an okay lap, nothing special, but it's not like he thought the car was awful. Yet he doesn't have the pace, and that is really not good because he's to be 7 tenths behind Russell as well. It's just there will be some real head scratching going on, and especially because last weekend in Bahrain, Hamilton had the upper hand on Russell for most of the weekend. So this has come as a real surprise. Yes, Mercedes don't have a great car at the moment, but to get knocked out by Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, was just so surprising. And yeah, I'm not sure what Hamilton can do in the race. He's going to really struggle, I think, to even score points.
Yeah, I think if there's a clean race, which is no guarantee at all, but yeah, I think if there's a clean race, it's, Mercedes are just it's going to be so strange for them having to kind of battle and think how they're going to outfox 12th place rather than, second and first place. It's really strange to think about. And yeah, I agree. Unless they can go back to send the data back to the factory and they can stay up tonight and have a look at it and find where to go, then I agree with you. I kind of can't see where the improvement's going to come from. And they've had 6 days of testing, 3 days in Bahrain, and now 2 days in Saudi Arabia to get on top of this, and they're still don't seem to be any closer to. Or I guess they didn't have this car in Barcelona, but that's still 8 days on, and from this car breaking cover, and they don't seem to be anywhere closer to solving it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this track was not going to suit them compared to Bahrain anyway. I just thought it would have been this bad because in Bahrain they were very strong in the slow speed corners, but Jeddah all high speed pretty much. So I did kind of expect that it wouldn't be as close to Ferrari and Red Bull. To be knocked out of Q1, it's just embarrassing almost. So it's just not good enough. I'm just not sure what went wrong. Was it the tyres? Was it lack of confidence? Maybe it was a combination of both. I don't know. But and the thing is, they seem so adamant, Russell, Mercedes and Hamilton, that they will fix it and that there's huge potential in this car. Well, at the moment, I'm struggling to see it. So, they know more than us guys. But it's going to come to a point where they're going to be too far behind. They're going to have too much time to make up, and it'll be too late. So they cannot afford to keep going out in Q1, Q2, or else it will just be a disastrous season for them.
That's kind of where I'm at, really. It's not like, before this week, then I kind of thought, yes, they've not been great in Bahrain, but they can still come back. And, I felt like they had it in the car to get back. But now it's like how, if you're potentially struggling to score points, let alone get, be in the top 5 and get podiums, which Russell did qualify, so we should say that. But if you're not anywhere near the fight for a podium, which they weren't last week until the very end, and doesn't look like they're going to be this week either, before long it is going to be out of sight. And even if they come with a world beater in the second half of the season, it's still going to be too much for them to do. So yeah, I think there'll be a lot of, regardless of what they're letting on, I think there's going to be a lot of worried people over the.
But they do seem so confident still that they can bring it back. I'm just not sure why. I thought if they thought they couldn't get back into it, they would be a bit more downbeat. But they still seem very positive to me, and that is the surprising thing. So that's why I'm kind of with them. I've still got that confidence that come Spain or something, they will be right there, which might seem like a surprising thing to say right now, but it's Mercedes, and from what they've said, normally they play things down, but at the moment they're still saying we've got the potential, we can get back into it. So we'll just have to take no word for it, quite frankly. But yeah, I don't know. it's for them. They'll just have to hope that, or for Hamilton, they'll just have to hope that this is his low point of the season.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And it's even kind of looking at the calendar, they've got a 2-week break until they get to Australia, then they've got another 2 weeks until they go to Imola, then another 2 weeks. So there are, it is the schedule does space out a bit kind of after this week, but still if you get to Barcelona, that's a quarter of the season gone before you can, that's effectively written off unless they get a huge slice of luck with the way races fall. So it's just a really kind of worrying for them thing. But yeah, like you say, we just got to see what they can come up with, and it'll just be one of those.
Yeah, I think what was I going to say? I think for Hamilton, there was a small sign with this last year. It was in Monaco last year. He only qualified 7th, I think, and he was miles behind Bottas. He had an awful Saturday, Hamilton. So there were kind of small indications last year with the mistakes as well that he made that he was going to have a few off weekends, and this could be his first one of the year. And because Mercedes have, third, fourth, or fifth fastest car, if he does have a bad weekend, it could be, him getting knocked out in Q1, which is what's happened. So he's going to get found out a bit more if he's not quite on top of his game. And we saw that with Russell as well last week when he only qualified, I think, 9th it was. So this is where they're at. I still believe in them. I think the development race is going to be huge, and I think we've seen. If you look at Norris and Ricciardo, they had the slowest car last weekend. Yet they've I think 11th and 12th. So you can make up big margins. It is going to change track by track, and we'll just have to see how they go in the race, because maybe the race pace might be a bit better. Maybe things will fall Hamilton's way and he can find himself in 5th or 6th or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's going to be such a chaotic race, and it's kind of scary, really, the way things are set. And that's kind of a kind of segue into the other main story of the qualifying, which was Mick Schumacher's crash. Absolutely huge crash in the early part of the circuit. I can't remember which corner exactly, but yeah, it was shocking. He came over. He basically just got a wheel onto the curb and span, and just sideswiped the barrier at absolutely huge speed and bounced all the way over to the other side of the track, and then rolled another 100 meters or so down. So there's obviously, we hope Mick's okay, and there's kind of that element, but also kind of the wider element of is there something they need to change about this track if you've got, if it's so high speed and you've got concrete walls that close leading to these impacts?
Yeah. Sorry, I'll just pause there because I just read that Schumacher's not going to race.
Okay.
So yeah, Schumacher's not going to race in the Mes race. But by the time this is out, you guys will probably already know, but we didn't until now. What was your question again, Adam?
Just about the safety of the circuit. Is it a safe place to race?
Is it a safe place to race? The FIA thinks so, don't they? Or else we wouldn't be racing. But it's not the most safe track on the calendar. Let's put it that way. It is risky. It is dangerous. And I'm in two minds because I want to see different tracks and I want to see the drivers being challenged because of, I don't like circuits which have been ruined by runoff areas and taking away gravel and stuff like that. And this circuit does provide that risk versus reward, which we love to see. So it's a tricky one. I don't know. We saw some big accidents last year as well. In fact, Schumacher himself had a big crash in the race. So every accident that does happen, it's a big one, and that is the only scary thing. So, is it safe? I don't know. I'm gonna sit on the fence with this one, Adam.
I think there kind of needs, after this weekend, I think there needs to be kind of a look at it and a kind of you know, not maybe the kind of official investigation, but, you know, just really, you know, analysing the circuit and not just kind of going with the status quo of, oh, well, you know, it's been okay. Because, you know, these crashes are huge. And if Mick Schumacher isn't racing tomorrow, then that's going to be, you know, to put a driver out of action from a crash. I can't remember the last time that happened where someone crashed that badly on a Saturday and that they weren't able to race on a Sunday. It's going the one, I mean, Indianapolis way back in the day, that, you know, there might have been one since then that I've forgotten, and there's probably someone listening that's
Master in 2009 in Hungary.
Yes,
but that was an accident. That was just spring hitting him. So
so, you know, but the fact that we've had to think so long about it kind of shows how rare it is. And I think there needs to be a look at it. And like you say, I do kind of admire it as a track, but that shouldn't be kind of paying off against, you know, driver safety. So I think just seeing how it goes, and
but if you think, no, Indy 500, everyone loves it. Yeah, you know, if you crash there, it's going to be huge. Yeah, everyone loves it, and no one says anything because it's the Indy 500. That is my argument, I guess, to it. You know, I don't think anyone would say we shouldn't race at Indy because it's dangerous. Like, no one would say that because it's because of the event, the spectacle, the history, everything about it. So, you know, yes, I'm still into, but I think I'll have to wait until I hear an argument that persuades me, I think.
I think, that is a fair point. And I guess it's, you know, always in motor racing, it's kind of risk versus reward, and no sport is safe. But there's kind of, I think there'll be some things for everyone to think about. Do you know what the situation is? Can another driver come in and replace Mick if they haven't qualified?
No, they're only going to be racing one car.
Okay.
So just Kevin Magnussen.
Yeah, who qualified 10th, I believe. He was in the top 10. And 10th. So another successful weekend for Magnussen, and, you know, Haas kind of showing, you know, Schumacher was looking good as well before his crash, so Haas kind of are showing that they've got the car there. But jumping back up to the front of the grid, you know, the kind of last main topic that I want to cover is Ferrari. They're back. Like, it's not a kind of question anymore. I think they are back, and I was waiting to see it, and there've been too many false dawns for me to believe what we were seeing in testing, or kind of absolutely believe it. But now it's not a question anymore. They're back, and they are right at the front of the championship fight and the grid this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I was called it when they launched the car, but I think that was quite early. They're 100% back. They arguably have the best car as well, you could say, but in the race, it'll be interesting to see if they do have the upper hand on Red Bull, whether they've got better tyre wear and stuff like that, because in Bahrain it definitely seemed that Leclerc was able to manage his tyres a bit better, so it'll be interesting to see if that remains the same. But I think with both drivers being up there, I think as long as they can stay with Verstappen at the start, they are probably still favourite to win. Even Perez is out in front, just because they've got those two drivers who can do different things. They're looking very good, Ferrari. And even if they don't win, even if they get second and third, second and fourth tomorrow, that is still a pretty decent result for them, considering Red Bull didn't score anything last week. All good for Ferrari.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a real test for you know, whether these F1 cars are able to follow as well as it's hoped that they can, because they you know, this is the type of track that wasn't, you know, built for the last F1 cars. Really, it was built for this type, and I think that's going to be kind of a real litmus test for that. But I'm excited for tomorrow. I think there's going to be, you know, safety cars, which, you know, we never want to see, and, you know, I hope that there's not incidents, but I see there being incidents, and I see that really affecting the way the race goes down. And, you know, we won't know who's winning until the last lap. I really think that. I don't think it's going to kind of be postage stamp for 10 or 20 laps to go. I think there's always going to be that kind of danger of something dropping in to change things at the last minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd agree with you as well. I think the nature of Perez, the way Perez was kind of so not surprised, but pleased and felt like his lap was a one-off, or the best that he could do, and he was still really not that far ahead of the Ferraris. Kind of does, they're probably still the quickest car on paper, and it's just how they can manage that. Have you got anything else you want to say on the top of the grid, or do you want to move down?
I think the last thing I'll say is I think it wouldn't surprise me if there's red flags as well, because we had 2 red flags last year. And in the F2 race, in the sprint F2 race, they had safety cars and they were out for so long. I mean, there was only, I think, 5 laps of green flag running out of 20 because they decided not to red flag it. They just did safety car lap after safety car lap after safety car lap. So for the F1, with nothing happening after it, it wouldn't surprise me if they red flagged it instead, just so we don't end up doing 75 laps behind the safety car. And if someone's pitted and someone hasn't, and there's a red flag, just like we saw last year with Verstappen, it's going to give someone a huge advantage. So that is something everyone is going to be keeping an eye on, but especially Ferrari and Red Bull. And I think Red Bull as well, the Honda or Red Bull powertrains or unit hasn't looked exactly too stable. Red Bull obviously had that DNF, but AlphaTauri, the sister team, have also changed parts. Gasly and Tsunoda have taken on new bits here and there, so it's definitely looking a bit fragile with the Red Bull engine. So just like you said, even if Perez or Verstappen is leading, you've got to make it to the checkered flag first.
And like you say, with the red flags, you could end up, you could get an Alpine leading, because Alpine had a very good qualifying session and went 5th and 7th, splitting or sandwiching Russell. Like, I think there'll be opportunities with really mixed up grid, especially kind of looking further back. And there's about 5 teams in the top 10 off the top of my head, maybe even more. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams in the top 10, which I think you will see a jumbled grid if you get something like that. And segueing from that is, who caught your eye from the maybe 5th to 10th window?
Yeah, Alpine were the team who caught my eye. I had a feeling that they would do quite well. In my preview for Total Motorsport, little plug there. That's the first time I've plugged them, so I'm allowed to do that.
You put it right at the top of the podcast as well to get the most exposure.
Yeah. So yeah, Alpine did really well with Ocon and Alonso. They both seemed to have that confidence to, when it mattered most, to really push the car, which is a great strength to have, especially on a street circuit. So they're going quite well. They're still not going to challenge Ferrari and Red Bull, but if they can get a 5th and a 6th or a 5th and a 7th in the race, that'll be a great result for them. So yeah, Alpine were the stars of qualifying behind Ferrari and Red Bull.
Yeah, definitely. If they can get another, they got a double points finish last time. So if they can get another double points finish and B, push it a bit higher at the grid and maybe get a top 5 finish, then yeah, that'll be fantastic. And I think Russell could be, pushing for that top 5 as well. Which would be his, no, I wouldn't ignore that. Yeah, it'd be a kind of big plus for Russell if he can make it into that top 5 or maybe even further up. I think the only other team for me that I think McLaren are the only kind of one that stood out. I think, if you look at the rest of the top 10, you've got the Alpines there, you've got Bottas and Magnussen, who both did well last week in, better than expected cars, and Pierre Gasly, who we know is quality. But McLaren out in Q1 last time for Ricciardo, they've jumped back up there kind of right on the verge of Q3 now, qualified 11th and 12th, so that's much better to see.
Absolutely. Yeah, they have to be very happy about that. They're still not where they want to be, of course, but they've got to start improving somewhere, and it looks like they have done that for now. Whether that translates into race pace, we'll have to see. But for them to be faster than Hamilton and to be second and third fastest Mercedes powered cars, that is pretty good. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they go in the race. And that's something I wanted to ask actually, Adam. What do you think about the Mercedes straight line speed? Do you think Well, yeah. Do you think they now have the weakest engine? And yeah, do you think they can improve it? Well, they can't really because of the engine.
Yeah.
But yeah, general thoughts on it.
I think it's got to be a big worry for them because it's not, if you look at the teams that are there and they've all taken kind of different design philosophies, so it's not, you can't just kind of put it down to, the chassis not being up to it on one car. I think it's a real worry. I think you've got to put them at the back at the moment. Like, I don't really see, there's...
Because Alpine look great. Renault look great.
Yeah, Renault look great. Red Bull powertrains, there's the reliability there. So kind of, if we set that aside, just looking at peak performance, Mercedes have to be there. But, I guess if Red Bull aren't finishing races regularly, then, I'd kind of rather, if I was a team boss, I'd rather finish kind of 8th with a mediocre engine than be not finishing half my races with a engine that fails. But yeah, I think
it's easier to fix. It's easier to fix though compared to like improving performance though, isn't it? I guess.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point. But it's just, again, it's surprising. We've been so used to this Mercedes dominance, and it's just not been there. So yeah, I think it's got to be a worry. We'll see tomorrow how it goes, but as you say, it's not something that they can easily change with the engine freeze. So yeah, it's going to be something to watch out for. What about you? Would you put them at the bottom?
Oh yeah, definitely. And it is a surprise because if you look how strong they were at the end of last season, especially in races like Brazil, where Hamilton was zooming up the field, and then over the winter, everyone else has not only caught up, they've gone past Mercedes, which is a massive shock. So whether that's because they've lost some key personnel to various teams, including Red Bull, over the last 18 months or so, whether that's a factor, I'm not sure. But the straight line speed doesn't seem to be there. And even if some of it is aero, it can't be a coincidence that Williams, Aston Martin and McLaren are also at the bottom of the speed trap. So, Mercedes themselves, they are running bigger wings to try and compensate for the porpoising and to give themselves more downforce. But I don't think a bigger rear wings fully explains the straight line speed problems. So I think there has to be a power unit deficit, and that's something they're going to have to work on.
Yeah, definitely. I think you summed it up very well, and it's something to kind of track through the season. But for Mercedes, it's definitely something they need to work on. I think the other two drivers I'll mention is Yuki Tsunoda, who didn't make it out at all. He got a DNS with a cooling system issue, and Daniel Ricciardo was within a tenth of Norris in both sessions, or just over a tenth in Q2, but he was a lot closer than he has been previously. So I think that's worth a shout out, but maybe not massive discussion. Is there anyone else that jumps out to you?
I don't think so. I think everything else was pretty much as you would expect. I think we've covered pretty much everything there, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, been a good session. Being back on the podcast with two-person with Nigel Chu, it's been fantastic, and we will be back either tomorrow or Monday to dissect the race, however it's going to play out. Because really, I think you can see anyone of that top 10 being on the podium. Actually, what is your, if you do podium and 5th place prediction?
I'm going to go boring. I'm just going to say Leclerc, Perez, Sainz, and then 5th will be Russell. I'll go standard.
I'm going to go... Why not? I'm going to go Perez, Alonso, Leclerc.
Oh, I like that.
That red flag point that you brought up is swung me.
I'm going to go Leclerc, Perez, Verstappen.
Okay. 5th place.
I think I said Russ. Yeah.
I'll go Verstappen. No, Sainz.
Yeah. Sainz.
Yeah. Well, it means Verstappen or Sainz has to be there if I'm not having them on the podium. So, yeah, that's our predictions. We'll see how it turns out. I think there is going to be a lot to watch tomorrow. It could be quite a long one. So yeah, make sure you clear your schedule out for an hour or so after the race. But yeah, we'll be back soon. But until then, enjoy the race and goodbye.